Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. It's Sunday, the 19th of October, 2025. We're now at day 744 since the attacks by Hamas on October 7th of 2023. We're continuing to count the days because the ceasefire could not be more tenuous, and I'll talk some about that today. But as it's Sunday, I often do a spiritual reflection, seeking to return my heart and our hearts to focus more on God as we seek to understand what it means to live out faithfully in this moment, to be faithful in following the Prince of Peace. So today, what I've been thinking about is a breath prayer. And the breath prayer that's been on my mind is be still and know that I am God. This is a verse that can be found in Psalm 46. It's actually verse 10. Be still and know that I am God, the psalmist tells us. When it seems like the chaos in the world is taking over, may we be reminded that God is still present and in control. May we be reminded from the words of this psalm, Psalm 46, that God is present with us and that we're not alone. Be still and know that I am God. I'm not sure if I've talked to you about the spiritual practice of breath prayers before. A breath prayer can be a short word, a phrase, a Bible verse, something that God's put on your heart, something that just comes naturally. And when I take a deep breath right now, I feel like the words I need to hear are be still and know that God is in control. So whatever expression you feel like represents the cry of your heart, you can carry that phrase with you in your heart and in your mind. It can be a prayer for a day. It can be a prayer that you say. Sometimes, you can even set your alarm and say it on the hour. You can carry it with you for days or even longer. You can write it on a piece of paper to remind yourself, if it's on your desk or somewhere in your kitchen or putting it on your refrigerator. And when you see it, take a breath and be reminded of that prayer that's on your heart. The prayer that just takes a breath to say, be still and know that He is God. When you wake up in the morning, it's a way to begin your day, to return our thoughts and our attention to God, the Creator. Be still and know that He is God. Psalm 46 begins with a reminder to us that God is in control. Even as the world might be falling around us, God is our refuge and our strength, an ever-present help in times of trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth give way, though the mountains fall into the sea, though its waters roar and foam, and the mountains quake with their surging. Be still and know that He is God. Even though it seems like the world around us is constantly in chaos, it's falling apart, it seems like evil is running rampant, though the earth gives way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, we're reminded of the truth of the good news that God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in times of trouble. I want to talk about some of the troubles that have been happening in the Middle East, just even since yesterday. And in between my sharing of the news, I'm going to say that breath prayer. Be still and know that He is God. Much of the news that I have for us today comes from Axios. It has a tendency to be a political journal. It's summarized why we're continuing to call for a comprehensive permanent ceasefire and how the ceasefire could not be hanging on less of a thread. They had an article that came out this morning that says the U.S. scrambles to save the Gaza peace deal amid new clashes. So Israel actually conducted airstrikes today on Gaza. This was after Hamas militants fired anti-tank missiles at Israeli soldiers. That was according to the IDF. But why it matters is these clashes have been the most serious escalation since the ceasefire came into force. The Trump administration is trying to prevent further incidents that could lead to the collapse of the agreement. A senior Trump administration official told Axios, we knew this was brewing and that the longer these guys are allowed to attack each other, the more they will attack each other. So take a breath and be reminded. Be still and know that He is God. Driving the news, the IDF said that there was an incident that happened this morning local time where Hamas militants came out of a tunnel in the Rafah area, which is still mostly controlled by the Israeli military. They came out of a tunnel on the Israeli-controlled side of the Yellow Line in the Gaza Strip, and they launched an anti-tank missile at an IDF vehicle. They said it was in response to an incident where the IDF conducted 20 airstrikes against Hamas targets in Rafah and other parts of Gaza. Netanyahu stressed in a statement that Hamas had violated the ceasefire agreement. and he vowed a strong response. Take a breath. Be still and know that he is God. The other side argued that Hamas's military wing, they denied any involvement in the incident in Rafah, and they emphasized that they're fully committed to the ceasefire. They said, we're not aware of any incidents or clashes taking place in the Rafah area. They said those zones are under Israeli control, and contact has been severed from our group that remained there. That was Hamas's military wing in a statement. And be reminded, be still and know that he is God. Behind the scenes, Israel notified the Trump administration in advance of the strikes through the U.S. command center that oversees the ceasefire, according to U.S. and Israeli officials. Trump's envoy Witkoff and Jared Kushner held a call with Israeli Minister Ron Dermer and other officials to coordinate and discuss next steps. The U.S. officials said that they urged Israel to respond proportionately and to show restraint, which means, in part, they're giving permission for the ceasefire to be broken. The U.S. told Israel that the focus should be on isolating Hamas for its violations in action and moving fast towards creating an alternative for Hamas in Gaza, rather than resuming the war. Nobody wants us to go back to full-scale war. The Israelis want to show Hamas that there are consequences without ruining the peace agreement, so said U.S. officials. Be still and know that he is God. The bigger picture, the agreement to end the Gaza war is a major diplomatic achievement for President Trump. The administration feels the situation is so tenuous that only by staying involved and having strong oversight will they be able to keep a fragile peace. The Trump administration will significantly increase its control of implementing the peace deal to make sure it doesn't fall apart, so said U.S. officials. The next 30 days are going to be critical. We're now in charge of what's going on in Gaza, and when it comes to the implementation of the deal, we're going to call the shots. Between the lines, you can read that one U.S. official said the clashes on Sunday were exactly the kind of incidents they'd been concerned about, but they were also expecting during this transition period. A second official said that Trump's visit to the region last week, both Israel and Hamas have taken action since then that have raised concerns about moving forward with implementation. Hamas started reconstituting its power in Gaza and conducting deadly retaliations against its rivals. We heard about the mass executions that happened publicly last week. Be reminded, be still, and know that he is God. The Israelis issued several threats to suspend the implementation of the deal. They say that they're now slow walking by Hamas in returning the bodies of deceased hostages. There also have been incidents where the IDF has killed Palestinian civilians. The situation is touch and go, said the U.S. Hamas, or whatever's left of them, thought it was going to be business as usual, and the Israelis did too. We will not let them fail, and the Gulf states feel the same way. Be still and know that he is God. What should we be paying attention to? Vice President Vance, Witkoff, and Kushner are set to arrive in Israel this week. They're going to push for this next phase of the implementation of the ceasefire agreement. Witkoff and Kushner are going to focus on stabilizing the ceasefire to allow the transition to the next phase of the agreement, continuing to return the bodies of deceased hostages, regulating the delivery of humanitarian assistance into Gaza so that problems don't arise between Israel and the UN, and ensuring Hamas can't seize or profit from any aid shipments, establishing the international stabilization force that will be deployed in Gaza, helping to maintain security, and working for the plans and construction of a new Rafah as a model for Gaza that will not be under Hamas rule. They're working on plans to disarm Hamas and to demilitarize Gaza. But a reality check, one senior official from the U.S. said now the work really begins. The official stressed that for the process to succeed, there's a need for people who know how to run the municipality, how to build water sewage treatment plants and run it. There needs to be local governance, and it's a huge challenge. The challenge is even bigger because the majority of Gaza is in rubble. Just moving the debris is a ridiculously hard task. Another key problem is how to get concrete into Gaza while preventing it from falling into the hands of Hamas, because it can be used as raw materials for terror tunnels, said officials. Take a deep breath and be reminded, be still and know that he is God. The bottom line, a U.S. official said if Hamas further violates the ceasefire, the U.S. will support Israeli moves to regain control of Gaza. That means more fighting, conflict, war, ethnic cleansing, and even genocide. The goal is to give Palestinians in Gaza the ability to be in areas that are not under Hamas control. Several hours after I prepared this report today, I knew about the heavy bombing in Gaza today by Israel, but it seems for the moment, right now, the ceasefire is holding. Near Rafah, Palestinian fighters emerged from that tunnel that was inside the yellow line, and it resulted in 2 IDF soldiers being killed. A third was wounded. The IDF responded by first attacking the tunnel and then attacking other places on the Israeli side of the yellow line, notably in central Gaza, far away from the Rafah attacks. They killed both Palestinian fighters and Palestinian civilians. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. Israel and Hamas each accused each other of violating the ceasefire, and for some hours, both sides talked about not obeying it and instead moving away from it. But fortunately, cooler heads prevailed on both sides, and all of the attacks were within the yellow line on the Israeli side. And by Sunday evening, Gaza Israel time, both sides had said they will go back to the ceasefire agreement. Be still and know that he is God. The rest of Psalm 46 says this: "Come and see what the Lord has done, the desolation he has brought to the earth. He makes wars cease to the ends of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the shields with fire. He says, be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress." May we be encouraged by the good news. He makes wars cease to the ends of the earth. Be still and know that he is God. In the name of Christ, amen.